Week 13 waiver wire pickups. Hey, we've got Dalvin Cook. We've got no Christian McCaffrey. What are you guys going to do with those rosters? Stay tuned and figure it out. What's going on, guys? This is John here with the Fantasy Tap, coming in with Week 13's waiver wire pickups, coming after this Week 12 that was absolutely great. Now, we do have a lot of players that are going to be on the injury list now. We got Christian McCaffrey going down for the rest of the season, hitting IR for the second time. Dalvin Cook not going to be playing this week, as well as some of these receivers. So let's make sure we're filling up our rosters very, very nicely. As we some of your leagues, you might only have 2 or 3 weeks left until you're in those playoffs. So you got to get as many wins as you can. And you got to be starting the best people you can. So if you guys are in a situation where you're playing guys like definitely not Cam Newton, but the Ryan Tannehill or Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, the Titans, the Browns, and the Panthers will all be on bye this week. So make sure if you have any of those players that are in a very important position on your roster, you're hitting that waiver wire and finding out someone that can take over that role very, very well. Now, if you are looking to stream a quarterback this week, it is a little rough. All the streaming quarterbacks seem to be on pretty tough matchups, but there are a couple options you do have out there. One guy you're going to want to be taking a shot at, Mike's not here with me today, but if he was, he would happily tell you to go grab Carson Wentz, owned in 44.8% of leagues right now, and he's going to be going up against the Houston Texans. We all know these divisional games get absolutely bonkers and that a lot of fantasy points come out of them. And he has been very consistent outside of 3 games this season. So Carson Wentz is someone that has been a low-end quarterback one, mid quarterback one, and then had some huge games. Doesn't really fall into that quarterback 2 slot very often. And in this matchup against Houston, he's going to be doing great. This is a game you should easily see him get 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, which has been something he's been able to do 9 times this season. Not very bad. And has only had 3 games where he's actually had a turnover, even though those games have had a few where you've gotten multiple interceptions in them. But Carson Wentz is on a great tear, especially with T.Y. Hilton actually back and healthy, Michael Pittman stepping up even more, and then Jonathan Taylor there to take away a lot of the rush. It's almost like a mini Derrick Henry back there, if not a clone in itself. So if you guys don't like Carson Wentz, check the waiver wire for Derek Carr. He is going against the Washington football team, and as of right now, they have allowed the most points to the quarterback, averaging 23.8 points to the quarterback each week in fantasy football. And Derek Carr did hit that huge stride early in the beginning of the season, and then did slow down a little bit through the drama of the Raiders, but is starting to come back fairly well. He's not someone that's been extremely a sexy pick, but after this week, where he just threw for 373 yards against Dallas in what was a shootout, we could see that again. Washington has been stepping it up on offense, and we have been seeing bigger games for them. So we could see a very, very valuable game against a team that is in a very must-win situation for the remainder of the season. And another team that's in a must-win situation, your weakest streaming option this week is going to be our guy, Tua Tagovailoa. Last week, he looked the greatest I've seen him in the 17 starts that he's had so far, only owned in 44.2% of leagues, going up against the New York Jets this week. The New York Giants this week. And the Giants have been a fairly turnover-heavy team, and generally that'll lead to more opportunities for the quarterback to get on the field, score some extra points, obviously. Even if he's not going to be scoring touchdowns, which is something that offense has been lacking, he's going to get more opportunities to put yards on the board, and in turn should lead to more touchdowns. Even though Tua has been doing fairly well so far this season, he is a quarterback 26, even though he did miss 5 games so far this year. In the past 2 weeks, he has put up a total of about 40 points, so averaging about 40, and that's against the Jets and the Carolina Panthers. Really did make the Carolina Panthers look a little silly there. Wasn't really high on the touchdown total because the defense took over very, very strongly. But against the New York Giants, we should see a very solid game from them. You're looking at a low quarterback 1 upside with more realistic opportunity of a mid quarterback 2, high end quarterback 2 against this team. But Tua is a mediocre start. Will get you by this week if you are running Aaron Rodgers with nothing else, and none of these other guys are available for you. But now, guys, we're going to hit the running backs. And as everyone knows, some of the highest drafted running backs of the season are going to be out again for the second time this season, and that includes Dalvin Cook and as well as Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey will be out remainder. Dalvin Cook's looking to about 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, from the latest reports. So make sure you guys go grab their handcuffs automatically, and that's going to be Alexander Mattison. Luckily, Dalvin Cook's been playing consistently enough that Madison's own percentage is all the way down to 33.5. And we do know what happens when Addison does get that full backfield to himself. He could have incredible games that mirror what you get from Dalvin Cook in some situations. Chuba Hubbard is also readily available in a majority of leagues, owned in 33.4% of leagues. He, on the other hand, is not going to be that instant throw in. As soon as you get him on your roster, he's going to be pretty matchup dependent, in my opinion. He is someone that, had a couple good games in the beginning part of the season when Christian McCaffrey went out, but after that really slowed down as we got McCaffrey starting to get rumors of coming back in, and then it's kind of just been used as that secondary back since, even though he hasn't had a game where he's rushed for over 4 yards since week 5. I'm sorry, 4 yards per carry since week 5. So I don't know if this is someone that you're going to want to be instantly throwing into your lineup. But if you are extremely running back needy, the Christian McCaffrey owner, the Cook owner, and Madison's not available, or if you just need a running back to fill a slot, Hubbard is someone you can throw in at a desperation against almost any matchup, and realistically, he will have some great games. When they do come back off bye week, because they are on bye week right in week 13, they'll be playing against Atlanta, have a couple tough matchups, but you could get a week 17 playoff game out of him against New Orleans. Don't really think you're going to want to be playing him against Buffalo or Tampa Bay in weeks 15 or 16. But again, just someone to fill that roster as those running backs are getting banged up more and more as we go further through the season. Another guy finding more usability just off the fact that DeAndre Swift is doubtful for week 13. That means Jamaal Williams is going to get an opportunity to step up even further. He has been handling that RB2 role very well so far this season, having some games where he's been able to get into the end zone, even carry the ball for more than 10 times in a game. Last week, playing 63% of the snaps, was able to get about 4.3 yards per carry on 15 rushes, as well as getting those 5 pass catches for 18 yards. Now, if he were to get some touchdowns as the fill-in for DeAndre Swift, you're looking at an automatic RB1. The opportunity for him this week going against Minnesota should be absolutely great. Another divisional game, and it's going to be at home for them. So look for Jamaal Williams as a much better running back opportunity and a running back for the rest of the season, even over Chuba Hubbard at this point. I don't really think we're going to be getting that much out of Hubbard. But again, with running backs being scarce, you need to stock up on whatever you can. And that breakout could happen. Now, if you guys are even getting a little more desperate, we can talk about the Tennessee running back group right now. With Derrick Henry down, we obviously know that team has a very rush-heavy mindset. And they do have 2 guys that have come in and taken an absolute dominant share and have produced spectacular numbers last week. We had 2 running backs running for over 100 yards, and that's Dontrell Hillyard and Deonta Foreman. Both of them got over their 10 carries, while Hillyard was the only one that was able to get into the end zone, and that was on a massive run, but it did look incredible. Now, we expected Hillyard to be getting predominantly a share of pass-catching work after what we saw against Houston in week 11. But last week, he was only targeted twice in the entirety of the time that he was on the field, averaging 51% of the snap share. So he is going to be the guy I recommend the more, even though we did see Deonta Foreman get more rushing attempts. I do think Hilliard is someone that's going to be needed moving forward. Both of these guys carry a similar value in my mind as like a lower end Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, where both of them could have great games, but you're not looking for either one to have a super big breakout unless the touchdowns happen. And luckily this week we saw them happen for Dontrell Hillyard. Both Hilliard and Foreman did lose fumbles this week, so hopefully that kind of looks like they get split carries. Again, they are going to be on bye this week, so you're going to have to wait for them to come back against Jacksonville week 14. But once that happens, you should be absolutely great. Looking at a semi-decent matchup rest of season, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Miami before finishing off the season against Houston for both of them. And both of them are owned at 27.9% for Dontrell Hilliard and 41.8% for Devonta Foreman. Now, as we jump into the wide receivers, Deebo Samuel is looking like he's possibly going to be missing some time. So if you're one of those holders, Brandon Ayuk takes a step up. And if you don't have him, well, it's time to hit those waiver wires and find yourself some other options. Now, we do have Van Jefferson for the for the LA Rams. After playing Green Bay, was targeted 9 times. Still put up 16 points, only catching 3 of those 9 targets, 30 for 93 yards, averaging 31 yards per reception and a touchdown. Absolute great for him. With no Robert Woods there, OBJ, Van Jefferson both had beautiful days while still keeping Cooper Kupp involved for a majority of the game. They will be playing Jacksonville in week 13, so it could be another opportunity for him to really take another step forward and be that wide receiver too if he can overshadow OBJ. But someone that you're not going to want to be throwing in as an instant wide receiver flex, but week 13 should look good for you. Now, another guy that did take another step forward with the absence of a bigger player, Russell Gage, in the absence of Calvin Ridley so far this season, looking like he's taking those steps forward. This week, he was targeted 7 times. Last week, he got the 8 targets from Matt Ryan. Going against Tampa next week might be a pretty rough matchup, but do look for him to take over as that wide receiver 1 for that team rest of season. He has been looking very, very good. With Cordell Patterson back, though, that usage could be seeing a limited share of that offense because Patterson just seems to be their number 1 guy that they want to get in everything they can. Now, another guy you can be looking forward to and might be very cheap if you're looking at fab budget, is going to be Rondale Moore, owned in 21.4% of leagues. And just to go back really quick, Van Jefferson's owned in 42.8%, so pretty highly owned, and Russell Gage is owned at 18.5% of leagues, so that's going to be readily available for you. But Rondale Moore for the Arizona Cardinals, even though we might see DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray come back this week, against Chicago, Rondale Moore is someone you're going to want to get into that offense. And maybe that we possibly lose one of them again, we lose DeAndre Hopkins again, or another one of the receivers in that offense. Moore got targeted 11 times last week, or in week 11, and caught 11 balls, only for 51 yards, but still got a little bit of rushing working on the side. And we could see those plays break open for some big gains. And that was against Seattle, which is a team that, though in history has been allowing a lot of offense, this season has been kind of keeping their defense rolling and slowing teams down. Another player that's been taking a step forward, wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, this week got in the end zone on only 2 catches and 25 yards. But the week before that did see a majority of the target share there for the Texans. I do think that Westbrook has been the number 1 guy out since A.J. Brown has been banged up and out the past 2 weeks. I do think Westbrook can take some more steps forward, and he's someone that you're going to be wanting to at least get on your roster and have in the event that you don't have someone you can throw into your lineup right away. Now, again, they are on bye, so make sure you are looking for them in week 14 when they are going to be playing Jacksonville. Now, I never thought I'd be saying this, and I besmirched this guy's name as he got drafted by the Patriots, but Kendrick Bourne is looking like someone that you're going to be wanting to get on that roster again. Another flexible player in a good matchup. Last week was targeted 6 times, big yards, big plays. His stats won't show it, but when you go back and watch the actual games, he does get targeted a lot in the red zone and on these big plays that either get called back for a penalty, something stupid, or just barely misses the catch in bounds. He has been someone that has been very boomer bust, though, and it has been very dependent on what Mac Jones has been doing. But sadly, as a Dolphins fan, Mac Jones is looking very good, and if he keeps taking steps forward, I do think that Kendrick Bourne's going to be someone that stays involved, as well as maybe that 1A, 1B with Jacoby Myers, if Myers is even that 1A anymore. And then finally, for the receivers, we've got a guy that's going to be usurping my role as the number 1 wide receiver, or my guy's role as the number 1 wide receiver for the Lions. That's going to be Josh Reynolds, usurping Amon-Ra St. Brown as the number 1. Josh Reynolds put up 70 yards on those 3 catches, averaging 23 yards per catch, as Jared Goff's favorite target in that game against Chicago on that beautiful Thanksgiving Day. I hope you guys had a lot of turkey. He was the 1 guy that got into the end zone as the receiver, and he is looking to be like someone you're going to want to get into your rosters, owned in only 0.3% of leagues, being someone newly added to those Lions. So make sure you guys get him in there. Someone that you're just going to want to hold on to again in that desperation play and in deeper leagues. So just keep up with that. Let's jump into the tight ends really fast. We do have someone, again, that I have talked down upon earlier in the season and have rightfully walked myself back because this guy is taking those steps forward as in second year in the NFL. This is going to be Cole Kmet, tight end for the Chicago Bears. Last week, targeted 11 times. That's more than Dan Arnold, and Dan Arnold has been someone who's been a beast. So if you've been on the Dan Arnold train and he's on IR right now, it's time to get yourself some Cole Kmet. Even against Pittsburgh, the guy was targeted 8 times. He's had 5 or more targets the past 6 weeks and has been someone that you're looking at as possibly being that number 1 tight end and possibly even that number 1 receiving option there in Chicago for Justin Fields. Going against Arizona, we could see a slower game, but Cole Kmet is a very solid streaming option if you are someone that just does not have a constant tight end for you to be playing every week. And he's someone that you might even be able to fill in and just take the shot on every week, as it does seem his floor, though it did come to 1 point last week, does seem to be somewhere around tight end 24, but even tight end 24 puts you about 3 to 4 points, 3 to 5 points per week. Tight end 12 barely puts you at that 10.5 mark. So let's move over to the last tight end, another boomer bust guy, and I'm going to give him the credit because this game just ended as it's getting filmed just after the Sunday night game. But this is going to be Gerald Everett, hyper targeted by Seattle tonight. Very, very solid with his production as soon as he caught the ball, was able to get a beautiful reception in the end zone. But realistically, DK Metcalf was only targeted 3 times in this game, completely shut down. And as soon as they realized that, it seemed like Gerald Everett was getting peppered with targets, along with the likes of Jeffrey Swain and Tyler Lockett. I think Gerald Everett is a very risky tight end streaming option rest of season if you are ever looking for him. But he is someone that does have a little bit of consistency building up over the past 3 weeks, has been targeted about 21 times in the past 3 games. So it's with 7 targets per game. Something you're going to want, just not a lot of yards coming out of that production. Otherwise, he would have been a must grab weeks ago. But keep an eye out if he does keep taking steps forward. Someone you're definitely going to want for that playoff push. He is owned in 8.5% of leagues. Cole Kmet owned in 13.2%. And then if you guys are looking to stream some defenses this week, I may recommend a couple. We can recommend the Miami Dolphins this week. They are going to be going against, like I said, the New York Giants. And the main reason for the Dolphins defense is just the fact that their actual defense has taken such a strong step forward over the past 4 weeks. It has been 4 weeks in a row that they have not allowed the opposing team to score over 20 points, and they have just been on a turnover spree. Last week, the Dolphins scored 28 points in my fantasy league, where I had them on my defense, and they actually completely won me the league, no questions asked. I won by over 28 points that week. So I do think Miami has been on a great tear over the past 3 weeks. They've been a top 3 defense in the NFL. And over the past 2 weeks, they have been the number 1 defense. So on that turn, they seem to be in a good stride. And like I said earlier, when we were talking about Tua as the quarterback, the Giants have been a very, very turnover heavy team. So you are going to be looking for them to be taking advantage of Daniel Jones's mistakes. And they are owned in about 46% of leagues at the moment. And if they aren't available, again, the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Detroit Lions this week. The Vikings defense has been sneaky good as far as creating turnovers and creating pressures against quarterbacks, especially when they're bad quarterbacks. Now we have Jared Goff going in there, possibly coming in for the start this week. And, that could turn into the Vikings getting about 2 or 3 turnovers on the game, as well as keeping that offense as low production as they can be. And as they have been in a lot of these matchups, especially the divisional ones so far this year. So I do believe that a very risky streaming option for you at defense, if you are looking for it, is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. But I do think that they'll get you by the week. Just with some luck, could even win you. Now, if you guys have anyone else that you guys want to add to that streaming request list or streaming options, make sure you guys add them in the comments below. Make sure you guys like the video as well as being subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on anything else that we have coming your way. And then make sure you guys are a part of that Discord chat where you guys can ask any questions, as well as meet a bunch of people who have a bunch of great ideas and great talking points about fantasy football if you guys ever want some more about that. Really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Always see you